This is an exciting time in Scotland's story, and understanding our past will help us determine our future. And when Scotland's voice is heard, it charts the way forward. This is Scotland Speaks with Salmond.
Welcome to Scotland Speaks with Salmond and part 2 of our presentation of some of the highlights of the ALBA Conference at Woodside Halls in the city of Glasgow the weekend before last. Let me say again, we make no claim at impartiality, given of course I'm the party chair and Alex is party leader. But this does give us a great vantage point to bring you information that the mainstream media neglect. Now, the headline news of the weekend was Ash Regan's dramatic joining of ALBA on the Saturday of conference, which led to the mainstream media scurrying to Maryhill. However, other fascinating moves were to be found, not least of which was ALBA moving to establish its policy programme on the great social and economic issues facing Scotland. First up was the initial move to give ALBA a cutting edge in land policy. New ALBA convert and outdoor legend Cameron McNeish was the moving spirit behind the resolution, but when unfortunately illness prevented his personal attendance, it was the Sky man Hector MacLeod who stepped into the breach.
I ask you to support the motion to get a working group set up, and I'd ask the working group to consider and look at a land tax that's fit for purpose and includes all Crown estates, a less demanding criteria for community buyouts to become more achievable, a removing of the option for landowners to hide behind company names and replace that with an obligation to provide full details of the person owning the land, with a land cap agreed to restrict the amount of land one person can own, and a policy to prevent land ownership from offshore tax havens, including any Scottish free ports.
Hector MacLeod, a delegate from Skye, you had a big job at this conference because you had to stand in for outdoor legend Cameron McNeish on the land policy resolution. He's a bit under the weather just now. Was that a bit intimidating having to be the stand-in for Cameron McNeish?
It was intimidating. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for Cameron. He's huge intelligence on this subject. But I hope I did him proud, and yeah, I'm glad it passed, and wish Cameron to get better soon.
Now, as a Highlander, indeed an Islander, how important is a radical land policy for the future of ALBA and the future of Scotland?
I think it's of huge importance. I mean, I think it really is of essential for us getting independence. If we don't get independence for our land, what do we get it for?
And this land injustice in Scotland stretches back centuries. Can you feel within touching distance that the land will belong to the people?
I think there's a long way to go. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but yeah, we're close, and independence will bring us so much closer.
Hector MacLeod from Skye, thank you so much for joining me in Scotland Speaks with Salmond.
Thank you, Alex.
While ALBA's land policy is starting out in its process of debate, the party's transport strategy is nearing completion. Here's a sample of the debate.
We in the Transport Working Group are working on two platforms. One, a long-term strategy for the future of transportation in independent Scotland. And secondly, short-term priorities and practical solutions pressurising Scottish Government and local authorities to implement improvements. We're already looking into how we deal with problems with local bus, rail and ferry services by talking to community groups and looking to get involved in public meetings. So let's now consider our long-term strategy. Our vision statement is now ALBA policy. Let me just remind you of it. It is the right of every citizen of Scotland to have access to an efficient, effective, accessible and affordable transportation system. We are now looking to progress our long-term strategy by proposing the establishment of a single transport authority with responsibility for the management and development of roads, rail, marine ports and airports, aligned to a commitment to bring all areas of transportation in Scotland into public control. And this is what I'm precisely asking Conference to approve. Key responsibilities would include governing the design, construction and management of major infrastructure projects, asset management and maintenance of all roads, drainage, rail, ports and airports. It would also have a remit to adhere to the vision statement to ensure that all communities were served and connected by an efficient, effective, accessible and affordable transportation system that is placed under public ownership.
Why does Scotland need a unified transport system? Because none exists. The vacuum created by the Scottish Government has once again led to ALBA Party having to stand up and create that unified transport system that the people of Scotland so desperately need. When we look across the transport systems, in rail, yes, we've had a couple of stations opened, welcome they are, but since Alec introduced the Borders line, we've had no new rail lines opened across Scotland. I was proud to be part of an independence-led administration in Aberdeenshire Council that introduced the idea in 2015 when we took over the administration of that council. The reopening of the Buchan line from Aberdeen to Peterhead and Fraserburgh. Since that time, feasibility studies have come and gone. The only sound that you can hear nowadays on that is of heels being dragged. Get it done. In terms of our roads, the dualling of the A96 and the A9, get it done. In terms of our ferries, it beggars belief that two of the foremost experts in the world, both Scots, both professors, produced a pipeline of ferries, many of them lifeline ferries across Scotland, which was rejected by the Scottish Government a few weeks ago. Get it done. I beg Conference to support this motion.
Welcome back. ALBA boasts the most inclusive conference of any political party. Those shut out of normal political debate dominate the proceedings. African and Asian Scots are fully part of the discussions, while those with disabilities find ready opportunities to put their case to the ALBA Assembly.
We acknowledge that no society is immune to the shadow of racism, which can persist as blinds on our collective progress. Racism impacts in Scotland resonate far beyond its geographical borders. It corrodes the very fabric of our diverse society, fracturing communities and stunting the potentials of countries and individuals.
I will just speak in accordance to my own experience in this country. I've been here since 2004, and I can assure you Scotland is the best country in this world. I've been supported along the whole, if I can say, through the different stages of my life by the Scottish policy in terms of education. And until now, I have a good job, but we still need to work on some things, which is racism. And as I've listened to all the previous speakers, and even Mr. Alex Salmond, who emphasizes on a society for peace and justice. And where there is the racism, there is no justice. And that's why all of us need to work on that.
But people don't understand. They don't understand why we're not exactly the same as they are. They maybe don't understand why I don't want the flashing lights. They maybe don't understand why I'm wearing blue-coloured glasses. They definitely don't know that unemployment for neurodivergent people is through the roof, because it's so difficult to get the special adjustments that you need, because they don't understand why you need them. If you have a visible impairment, they can go, well, okay, you need wheelchair access, okay, you need this, that, and the other. However, if they can't see why you're different, you just are a pain asking for the actual legal changes to the workplace that you require. I'm neurodivergent, and I had no idea there was going to be a consultation coming up discussing a matter that is vitally important to me and people like me. On a conference, I cannot support this motion enough. It's time that we do more and more for those who suffer from stigma, who suffer from disadvantage, who suffer from the lack of life chances simply because people do not understand. So I welcome this motion and ask you all to support it.
Eva Comrie, you're the ALBA Equalities Convener. Now, firstly, they're all packing up just now, the chairs are away, it's a Sunday evening now. What sort of conference have ALBA had in Glasgow?
Fantastic conference, an absolute belter, Alec. You'll know yourself. An awful lot of people reminiscing on past victories, past glories, but looking forward very much to a future of success for our country and for our party.
Now, Ash Regan said something to me when she came off stage after that incredible reception she received. She said to me, you know, your party, meaning ALBA, is a lot more diverse than the SNP. That's an interesting comment, wasn't it? I'm very proud of the fact that Ash made that observation, because it is a highly accurate one. I think people will remember that our party was founded principally on the notion of independence as an urgent necessity, but I was able to participate in the drafting of our Women and Equalities statement, which again was one of our founding principles. But we've developed as a party in the past couple of years so that, for example, today we had motions passed in relation to all sorts of aspects of life and ordinary life for the people of Scotland. Our party looks like Scotland. What we found particularly yesterday and today with our speakers was that very many of our speakers are from the types of places that you don't normally expect to find politicians these days, where we had people speaking about real lived experience of working class people, some people who had lived in
times of poverty and other hardships, including those suffered by myself, such as disability or health issues, physical disability and mental health issues and neurodiversity were all matters that were covered in some of the motions passed this weekend. So although these are all very difficult and troubling times for people, there was hope, real hope within the room that our party is making a tangible difference because we are passing policies that will have an impact on the people of this country.
So ALBA for Equalities would be a proud boast?
ALBA for Equalities, absolutely, not just for women and equalities, but all equalities generally, certainly whether that's race, sex, age, disability, health, all the characteristics we value very, very dearly in our party.
Eva Comrie, thank you so much for joining me on Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
A great pleasure, Alex, thank you.
Now, Abdul Majid, you've been campaigning for Scottish independence for 30 years. But how encouraging is it as a long-standing Asian Scot for independence, to see so many Asian and African faces at the ALBA Conference?
Yeah, I see that one, because I joined since from 1995. The independence movement, and still, I was carrying on that one. I see the peoples from the Asian and African, and so also Arab people as well, in the independent campaigns. And this is the big sport for the ALBA parties, and we are keep doing, day by day strength, to the coming in the movements, and still, the people try to come in the ALBA parties, and they want independence, Scotland.
Thinking about the Asian community, you're Kashmiri, of course, yourself, a Scots Asian. Is there a particular empathy, feeling that people in the Asian community have towards the independence movement and now to ALBA?
Yeah, I think since the Pakistan, they've come out from the India, that they get the independence, that's the very big thing, for him, to join. And plus Kashmiri, the struggle for the independence as well, The Kashmiri always support, not only in the Scotland, is all over the England, the Kashmiri support the ALBA parties and the independent Scotland. This is the big thing, and we are all, you see the young people, coming yesterday in the very, very young, coming the Asian, in the for the independent movement, they joined the party.
And do you feel you get a fair kick of the ball in ALBA?
Yes.
Abdul Majid, thank you so much
thank you
for joining me on Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
Thank you.
Well, Tony Ozzie, the conference is packing up for the day after a very busy Saturday, but you got your motion in on racism just at the end there. How pleased were you to bring that motion to the ALBA conference?
Yes, I first of all believe in ALBA, and that's why we're here. The ALBA has taken that milestone to recognize, first of all, the equality within ALBA party, which is the reason why African Scots are people of Africa that believe that lives here in Scotland and believe in ALBA party, and for that reason, I had to bring the motion forward because I believe that ALBA has the capacity to address the issues of racism in the country.
And what do you say, what's the role of African Scots? I mean, do you want to see African Scots taking their place right across the range of things, including, of course, public life in Scotland?
Absolutely. That's what it entails, the inclusivity of everybody as a diverse society. We live in a very recent society which is supposed to be more contemporary to accommodate everybody regardless of their race and religion. And you can see it here within ALBA party. My face is lighting up because as you looked into the conference, you see it's very diverse. And that is it. We make ourselves proud and see that the society that we all want to see. So African Scots, I want to see African Scots in all areas of work, to actually not only preach diversity and inclusion, but to see it practically in action, seeing people of Africans in every other areas and all institutions. That's just what I'm looking forward to see, and I know we can deliver that.
Well, Tony Ozzie, more power to your elbow.
Thank you, sir. I won't take you enough, but you are the man for Scotland, the man that has the right cause, that is very passionate about independence of Scotland. You have the right ideology, you have the power, And that's why we're here, and we'll support you all the way.
And thank you for appearing in Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now, Leila Danzia, you were speaking in the anti-racism motion from African Scots for ALBA. It was your first time speaking at the big conference, at the main conference. How did you find that experience?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I was a bit nervous, but when I go into the stage, things just start coming. And to me, I see it was a big opportunity for ourselves, because I'm representing the African community here in Scotland, to express ourselves and to talk about the issue that matters to us. And having a political party in Scotland giving us this opportunity, wow, is something huge to us. Maybe you don't see it, but for us it's huge because we never had this opportunity before. So thank you very much to ALBA and to Scotland, and yeah, it was really good, a really good experience.
Leila, how do you look forward to African women
Yes.
playing in particular a role across public life in Scotland? Is that your ambition to see that happen?
Oh, that's my dream. Because myself, I've been working hard to get into a level, first coming from a French country, speaking, if I can say. Coming in here, I have to restart everything, like learn English first and then find a course to do. So I've done that, and I have the vision of pushing myself high, and then to get to that level to also contribute to this society, because Scotland has welcomed myself, Africans, and I always feel like I owe Scotland as well, but I have to go through a process to learn how the society is organized, to learn a professional, if I can say, job or course, and I've done that. And now, where we are now, I want African women to get involved more in politics, because it's so important for us to reach that decision-making level as well, so that our voice can be heard, because nobody will speak for us, we have to do it.
That's a great encouraging message
Yes.
for African women in Scotland.
Yes, I want
Thank
them
you,
to
Leila,
join. Thank
for
you
joining
very
me
much.
in Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
Thank you very much, Alex.
And now to your tweets, messages and emails. Janet Scott says, great to see wee Annie getting the recognition she deserves. She's a legend in the grassroots indie movement. Angus Brenda MacLeod MP says, they can say what they like, but given policies, it is currently a fact that Ash Regan is the most pro-independence MSP. The rest should seek to match. Margaret says, great conference and a warm welcome to Ash Regan at Team ALBA. Stan Wilson says, welcome Ash, and I hope you'll not be the only voice in the wilderness of the Scottish Government for any length of time. Great show as always. Scott Cummings says, ALBA Party is head and shoulders the most professional and progressive political party in Scotland. It's on its way up with the most capable politicians and members. Well, thank you, Scott. Welcome back. Now there's another accent which is heard loud and clear in the ALBA proceedings, but is becoming very rare in the more manicured politics of the established parties, and that is the voice of working class Scotland. Here is a sample from the feisty debates on housing, industrial policy, and a fraternal address from Gordon Martin.
And then you look at, well, what is the cost of this? What's the human cost? 16,000 bairns are homeless in Scotland.
Shocking.
There is a homeless city the size of Perth in Scotland. The size of Perth. Now, I attended a demonstration on Thursday, organised by the Scottish Tenants Organisation. And I heard from Linda McVeigh and Maureen Thompson about their children who had died in homeless hotels in Glasgow. Frankie McVeigh, 30 years old, not a drug addict, no drink or alcohol problems, died of an overdose. Because these hotels that people are languishing in for 48 weeks before they access temporary accommodation. Now, you remember my story, 2 weeks in one of these hotels in a secure tenancy. Well, it turns out that if you demolish vast numbers of social housing, 66,000 public homes, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Scotland has a nationalised shipyard in Ferguson Marine that is at capacity with the too much maligned ferries. Problems that are not of the workforce doing but lie squarely with Seamal. The Scottish Government should bring Inchgreen into public ownership and align it with Ferguson's, thus allowing it the capacity to bid for other work. It should also directly award all further ferry contracts to Ferguson's. In closing, I'd like to pay tribute to the Campaign to Save Inchgreen Dry Dock group, led by Robert Beards, who've worked tirelessly to fight for a better future, for highly skilled jobs in the face of a distinct lack of support from Inverclyde Council, its councillors, its MSP and its MP. Indeed, the aforementioned have at times been hostile to the group. It is only ALBA that have supported them from our inception. Following on from Roddy, I'll finish with the following lyrics. You've got to fight for what is right, for all that you believe. It's right to fight for what is right, to live the life you lead. As long as you have done your best, then no one can do more. Then life and love and independence is well worth fighting for. Please support the motion.
Great stuff.
The current leadership of the SNP and the previous leadership of the SNP under Sturgeon tried to hoodwink the people of Scotland. They did not take the demand for independence one iota forward, in my humble opinion. They did not, and it's a betrayal of the Scottish people. It's a betrayal. So you guys here are hopefully going to be the conscience of the indie movement and the SNP rank and file activists, because a lot of great people. I've spoken at SNP conferences, fringe events, you know, the trade union group, etc. Great people just like you guys are, who heart and soul want independence. But do their leaders? Not in my view. They like the ministerial Mondeo or whatever it is these days. And all the rest of it, and as for the Greens, Jesus, don't get me started on that.
Leanne Tervit, I was interested in the motion that you were proposing. Poverty kills, independence is a lifesaver. That's a pretty big claim, is it not?
Poverty does kill. You would have heard in my speech some of the names that I've mentioned, that the people that I've lost. Suicides, addictions, ill health, overdoses. Poverty kills. It's so straightforward, it's true, it's real. I have lost people my whole life. It was to start with people my own age when I was younger, and now it is people my kids' age. You're talking about people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, long before their time, talented, lovely, nice people who have just had it so hard that they try to escape life in whatever way they can. Poverty kills.
But independence is a lifesaver. How do you justify that?
Independence is a lifesaver. Right now we are under Tory rule. Labour rule will be no different. We need our own finances, we need control of our own resources, and ALBA have the right people to start to make a job on eradicating poverty. Without independence, it has shown for the past decades and decades that we cannot eradicate poverty as part of this union. We can if we get our independence.
Now, just one last personal question. Could you have imagined, let's say, a couple of years ago that you standing up at a political conference and holding forth?
2 years ago, I was not politically active until ALBA was formed, because I didn't have anything to be active about since 2014. Since then, I joined ALBA. Small voices are promoted in ALBA, and I had a small voice. I kept quiet for a while in meetings, but then once I was encouraged to speak up and speak out about my life and my people and what I want for the people that I grew up with in the schemes who live in poverty, it was encouraged. Now I'm writing motions, I'm delivering speeches, I'm on political podcasts, and I'm writing articles. And if I can do it coming from my background, anyone can do it.
Leanne, Tervit, thank you so much for joining me in Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
Thank you.
Lived experience was also the order of the day in the health service debate when ALBA doctors took to the rostrum. Let's take a look.
At one time, one of the few crowning glories of the United Kingdom, inverted commas, was our National Health Service, emblematic of a post-war consensus and cohesion which endured for a few decades. It is now in the death throes and requires urgent resuscitation, revitalisation, and above all, reformation. I hope we can all agree with that. But quo vadis, what happened and where do we go from here? What is the prognosis for the NHS? Diverting a little bit at this point, in parallel with this, public health, a separate issue from sick health, is being buffeted by real pandemics. The pandemic of depression, despair, anxiety, childhood emotional and behavioural problems, heart disease, poor cancer outcomes, a gathering tsunami of type 2 diabetes with all the suffering, deaths and expense that this will entail, not to mention the ignominious reality of living in a nation where existential despair and colonial trauma has resulted in the tragic, lonely deaths of under 40s by self-administered lethal injection. We are now living in the record-holding nation across Europe for intravenous drug deaths. It is also a great indictment of our political and social environment. Up to 30% of us are now medicalised and medicated with antidepressants and major tranquilizers, sometimes with both. Now, this brings me back to the core concern of this resolution. What happened to our hospitals and family doctors and nursing services? That's what people really want to know in this country, if you speak to them.
We know that poverty, we know that unemployment, we know that poor education are associated with those negative health outcomes. But it's not the whole point. I think Jackie Kelty mentioned yesterday in the motion about poverty. Even in some of our better off communities, there are people with poor health. And so irrespective of demographic background, the proportions are higher in impoverished areas, but people are ill in all areas. A miserable or painful existence is still a miserable or painful existence. An early death is still an early death, and we must do more to help in that. Health sits at the heart of everything. Everything we do as individuals and almost everything we do as a society. The better our adults' health, the more productive we are as individuals and as a nation, the more time and effort we can have to work and play with our family and friends. The healthier older people are, and I'm getting to be one of those older people, the better the quality of life they have. And I think that's really, really important. Fewer medical needs, fewer pharma needs, and fewer needs for assisted care. And who wouldn't wish that for our older people? And the better our children's health. I've got grandchildren, I've got children, but I've also got grandchildren, and I want to see them with a healthy future. The better place they will be to take advantage of education, training opportunities, learn to socialise in a broader way, and become resilient and caring members of society. So we know the benefits, and now we know the disadvantages. So, conference, you've heard Dr. Doherty speak of the challenges facing the health service. And it's a health service we are all going to need at some point in our lives. Some of us will have already needed it. There are real challenges, and the challenges cannot always be dealt with more money, more money, more money. It needs, as he said, fundamental root and branch changes.
Welcome back. The ALBA Conference took place against the backcloth of crisis and tragedy in the Middle East. Ken MacAskill MP united the conference with a powerful plea for an immediate ceasefire.
So not only is what's being perpetrated by both Hamas in the initial stages, but now by Israel, is entirely contrary not just to existing laws, but to values that we as a people have adhered to for centuries. That is why we have to speak out. That is why many of us, had it not coincided with the march today, would have been marching elsewhere in Glasgow, but it's our conference and this is our priority. But it's why we've held back because of the fluidity of events, but we're making sure that we echo what I no doubt people who are on the march are saying. I can also say that I think the First Minister has acted with great dignity and he has earned a great deal of respect. But it also makes a case for Scottish independence, because at the end of the day, we say this is not in our name, and I say that as loudly as anybody else. But the problem is the vote for the people of Scotland is cast in the United Nations by the government of the United Kingdom, and they abstained when the developing world and the overwhelming majority were speaking out against. So it was the vote of the UK to abstain, even if they didn't vote against. That's why we can only look with envy across at Ireland, who have a leadership in terms of President Higgins, a man of remarkable decency, who has had the courage to speak out, echoed, it would have to be said, by Mr. Guterres, the United Nations General Secretary, because we don't just require a humanitarian pause. Of course there should be a humanitarian pause and water and food should get in, but there has to be a ceasefire. And we don't need weasel words, we need concrete action. An immediate ceasefire they must be. But as the UN General Secretary and as President Higgins has said, this didn't happen in a vacuum. It is part of an ongoing conflict for decades, and it will continue and not be solved by the Israeli actions. It will not be solved until we have a ceasefire and until we have justice for the Palestinian people. That is why Neil and I will continue to work with Dr. Zomlot and the Palestinian Authority, condemn Hamas, but equally condemn the actions of Israel, which are entirely disproportionate and contrary not just to laws, but to humanity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken.
Well, that was the conference that was. Now, you know, in days to come, I think people might well look back on the ALBA Conference of 2023 in the Woodside Halls in Maryhill, Glasgow, and say that was a key moment. when a new force in Scottish politics came of age. For ALBA, obviously, it's now as a national party hugely important that we have a foothold in the Scottish Parliament in the form of Ash Regan, and what a tremendous impact she had at this conference. Obviously, the policy platform that's being developed is equally impressive, and a new wave of talented speakers coming to the rostrum and giving their tremendous ideas. Both of these indicate that ALBA as a party is indeed coming of age. And that's against a backcloth that over the last year ALBA have been saying to the SNP, let's fight the general election, the next Scottish elections on a Scotland United for Independence platform. Obvious attractions you would have thought for the SNP. It would give them an independence at the heart of their programme, which they don't have now. And also, it would enable them not to fight on the Scottish Government's mediocre record in government. It should have been very attractive for the SNP to take up that offer. But thus far, ALBA have been met with a total rebuff. Now, that may change, it may not change, but ALBA have to provide for the possibility that it will be our responsibility to offer as many people in Scotland the opportunity to vote unambiguously for independence at the general election next year and at the coming Scottish elections. That means a much wider intervention than we'd thought previously, because there's nothing more important than people being able to go into a polling station and vote for national independence for Scotland. So ALBA will be offering that option. And it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that it will be the Maryhill Conference of 2023 that's looked upon as that turning point in Scottish politics, when an emerging new force, a new national party with independence as its key priority, came on the political scene and said, look, we're going to offer the people of Scotland that opportunity, their national right to vote for self-determination at each and every election. And now with that, let's go over to Tasmina to round up an exciting coverage of this weekend conference of ALBA in Maryhill.
Thank you, Alex. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this insight into the proceedings at the recent ALBA conference in Maryhill, Glasgow. It will be remembered as the assembly where ALBA gained in Ash Regan their first ever member of the Scottish Parliament. However, equally important might be that it is the conference where ALBA's policy making came of age, as the party displayed its diversity and reach into all parts of Scottish society. ALBA might just become the party which reaches the parts that the other politicians don't reach. Next week, we'll be back with a political roundup after the conference season at 9 p.m. every Thursday, just as you know, and as Alex says, on more social media platforms than you can shake a stick at. We hope to see you on one of them next week. Until then, take care.
This is an exciting time in Scotland's story, and understanding our past will help us determine our future. And when Scotland's voice is heard, it charts the way forward. This is Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.